Get ready for a whole new Joker, some time with Judy Garland, and a trip to Motown.
I'm Bex Perfect.
I'm Van Connor.
And this is Offscreen, your 7-day guide to everything movies. Boom.
Groovy.
Did you like the boom?
I did. I think you pulled that off really well for your first boom.
But you know what? I think this week, above everything, deserves a boom. And I'll tell you why. Because it's very rare that you get two massive movies in the cinema that are up there as front runners for awards season in so many different ways.
It's true, isn't it? We got a double whammy this week on the potential Oscar front, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, our first film this week is the movie that I think we have been itching to talk about for weeks on end. Now that we've both seen it, we're going to dedicate a whole segment to it because it is astounding. Believe the hype, people. This is Joker. It's in cinemas from Friday. It's rated 15, and it's basically an amazing story about a guy called Arthur Fleck, who's he's a failed comedian, shall we say, and he's a clown for hire by day, and this is his slow descent into madness and ultimately the Joker himself.
Arthur, I have some bad news for you. This is the last time we'll be meeting.
You don't listen, do you? You just ask the same questions every week. How's your job? Are you having any negative thoughts? All I have are negative thoughts.
I'm going to tell you, I have no negative thoughts about this movie whatsoever. I mean, let's start. What did you think of Joker?
I mean, of the film or of the man?
Well, I think a lot of people are going to go into this thinking they're going to see a bunch of superheroes, all that kind of jazz.
Oh, definitely not, no.
No, this is a character study, right?
Well, it refers to itself on its own IMDb listing. It's a gritty character study.
Well, there you go. I did not lift it from IMDb. That was my own thinking that it's a character study. I mean, this is like Taxi Driver. This is like a proper meltdown.
You said it. I mean, there have been those. Everyone's made that comparison because it so obviously wears those influences on its sleeve about things like Taxi Driver and the King of Comedy. So there's that Robert De Niro connection.
Yeah.
And I think Scorsese was, for like 2 weeks or something, was going to produce this.
Oh, wow. Okay,
and
I didn't know that.
I think that's how Robert De Niro came into the picture as well. But one of the things I thought was an influence that doesn't seem to be getting any credit on this one is Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer. With Michael Rooker, specifically the image of him and the mirror and the red light.
Yeah.
And I thought of, it's Henry Portrait of a Batman villain.
Yeah.
I had that with it. A great performance, though.
Absolutely. And let's not forget, and this is the thing that always gets me, is that Todd Phillips, who directed this, directed The Hangover.
Right. This is the thing, right? Because he's not been brilliant in the press this week.
Okay.
He's said some silly things.
Yes.
And I think people are putting a little bit more faith in his abilities than we think. But you sit there and think, yes, but you do look at the man's repertoire and think it's amazing that he's made a movie this good because his filmography, off the top of my head, consists of Road Trip, Old School, Starsky and Hutch, the first Hangover, War Dogs, the Hangover sequels.
Very in one direction, one linear direction,
Very
right,
much
of comedy.
so.
Yeah, and then suddenly, but hey, this is the great thing, the big surprise, isn't it? You just completely turn it on its head, and suddenly you create this masterpiece. I will say masterpiece.
You say
because
masterpiece.
I say absolute masterpiece. I was immersed for 2 hours in this. I was obviously, we'll talk about Joaquin Phoenix in a moment, but I was obviously completely, captured by his performance. But it's everything. It's the way it's shot. It's the score that goes to this. It's something that gets under your skin. The political undertones of this, the ability to kind of show how society can let someone down so much that they ultimately turn into something, unbeknownst to us, and something underworld almost, and anarchy as well in this. I think it's all portrayed very well and explained very, very well. And what I like about this is that you don't have to be a superhero buff to go and watch this movie and get it.
There is a superhero connection decision made in the creative process in this that I did take umbrage with. I thought that was dealt with a bit badly.
Oh, what's that?
We can't say for spoiler reasons.
Okay.
But there is there's a couple of significant Gotham-based events that take place that you just like. is that necessary? Like, okay.
Oh, I quite liked them.
But the thing for me as well, I mean, I think great movie. There were comparisons, I think, made in the lead up to it. People had made references to things like Fight Club and things like that.
Yeah.
In terms of what it would represent, the potential danger of releasing this film in this day and age. I think those are unfounded. And I will say I think those are unfounded because my one negative thing about the film is I don't think it's very focused entirely on the statement it wants to make. It won't shut up trying to make points, but it doesn't seem to make one clearly enough.
Oh, that's interesting. I mean, I thought I got all of their statements very clearly in this, and I felt there was just enough to kind of tip the scales a little bit on everything. So maybe it leaves things unanswered, ready to go and follow up. I wouldn't want to see a follow-up to this.
No. No, but we don't need Penguin.
No, we don't need Penguin. Well, I don't know. Danny DeVito, are you around?
We had Batman Returns. Technically, that already was
decrepit Penguin. No, I mean, this for me, it covers so many areas, and I quite liked that about it because it didn't feel messy.
There's that element, for instance, where we hear him psychotically laughing, and we're told from minute one this is a mental condition he has.
Yeah.
That he can uncontrollably laugh when he feels uncomfortable. And the problem is, once you start introducing elements, I feel like you're giving the character a bit of a default get-out clause. It kind of and also it lets the world off the hook a little bit if he was already on the edge to begin with. I mean, I came away from thinking...
I think you're overthinking that.
I think I am, maybe, but... in terms of the replicable behaviour that everyone is scared of, my question is, what replicable behaviour? Are we worried that people are going to beat up clowns? Because we already did that in the press 2 years ago.
Okay, I understand where you're coming from. I think the thing that really gripped me about the thing that we see with Arthur Fleck in this is the realism that this could happen to anyone, right?
Absolutely, yes.
And that's what makes it suddenly this entire kind of worrisome, dangerous movie. If I was going to use the word dangerous, it's because of that reason, is that it's not an unrealistic scenario that could happen if someone is completely failed on all sorts of different levels.
I will say that I think the way that... we've got to talk about Phoenix. The way that Phoenix plays it, I think, is absolutely out of this world.
Yeah.
The smartest decision they've made is to enable him by not having it involve any gimmicks, any superheroics or anything like that. When violence happens, it's real, raw violence. And very much in the vein of You Were Never Really Here, I thought, as well.
Yeah, which I didn't really like. But I see those elements that came through in this. There's things that, when he becomes the clown, like taking the elements from being a street clown and applying it to being the Joker, suddenly movements that he makes are far more ferocious. And suddenly, things that are supposed to instill fun and laughter made me shudder.
Oh, yes, very much so. Yeah, I see what you mean. In that way that you wish it too had had more of.
Yeah.
In exactly that sense.
He's almost scarier than Pennywise in some respects on this.
He absolutely is. I will say, as a huge, lifelong Batman fan, I'm not a fan of Batman in movies for about the last decade. I think it's been done to death.
You're not a fan of the Dark Knight kind of
No, the Dark Knight stuff was great and everything. I think by the third one they'd run out of steam, and the Affleck one I would just rather not acknowledge exists, if I'm honest. So having said that, I'm all for the idea that they should retcon this into Robert Pattinson's Batman. But as the Bat fanatic, I've never really gotten the Joker. However, I do respect the hell out of the way that the nuances and the levels on which Joaquin Phoenix plays this character. He has incorporated very stealthily different elements from other Jokers, and there are moments when he goes full Heath Ledger. There are Mark Hamill moments. There are even Cesar Romero moments, and that's up to and including the brilliant costume design towards the end, which very much is Cesar Romero with that Scorsese
old school, yeah, and you see it kind of earlier in the film just make a hint of it, an appearance every now and again, and you're like, I wonder where that's going to go, when that's going to come in full regalia. But for me, like his performance, the weight that he lost is like Christian Bale in The Machinist.
And he plays with it physically, doesn't he?
The contortion that he does within his body is almost difficult to watch.
It is. It's very. I know what you mean about shuddering. Yeah. With his shoulder blades.
His shoulder blades, but also his rib cage and stuff. The thinness around like his stomach and stuff. And he's just sitting on a sofa at that point. But his relationship with his mother, his sort of psychosis, his obsession with Robert De Niro's character in some respects is all just incredible how it all pieces together. And what I love about the way the film kind of ends or comes to a conclusion is that everything is essentially explained. And I love that about this. And that's not a spoiler in any way. It just gives you a bit of enlightenment that sometimes you can feel a little bit like, oh, I didn't get that bit, or I didn't get that bit, or I didn't get that bit. For me, it was all pieced together nicely.
You do walk away with a completely clear picture, don't you?
100%.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say, just occurred to me, by the way, because obviously we've got the footage on in the background. One influence I discovered as well that I don't think anyone seems to have acknowledged, Network. Paddy Chayefsky's Network from the 70s. I thought there were moments like that, particularly in the sequences involving his obsession with Robert De Niro's character.
Yeah, very retro, I mean, all of it is incredibly thought out down to the detail. For me, I'm going to tell you, believe the hype. I think this is a warranted 5-star film. It ticks every box for me, and it's something that I very rarely kind of go after a screening, I'm going to go and see it again very quickly, but I'm happy to go and watch. No, I'm very happy to go and watch it again this weekend. And I would encourage that this weekend, if ever there has been a weekend this year, is the weekend to go and see some great performances in movies. And we're obviously going to talk about the others in just a second.
Well, we need to talk about this. Is obviously, I'm guessing you think this is best actor winner material?
Best actor winner, hands down. This will be hard to beat. Someone would have come out of the shadows now as a running contender, but this is a runaway for me.
2 thumbs up from me as well.
Yeah.
Big fan. So, okay, let's leave it there. And we're back. So, should we take a journey to Motown, Miss Perfect?
I think we could do with a little bit of light relief. Yeah.
Quite. So, Hitsville, Making of Motown. This is a bit of a strange one. So this had a one-night...
I'm immediately clicking my fingers.
And rightly so.
Chiwabi.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you wait for that clip. You're going to have a ball. So we had... there was a one-night screening of this on Monday where it was linked through all cinemas, like the world premiere was
nice.
linked.
Okay, yeah.
It is also on limited release on Friday as well. It is available on video on demand on Friday, and it is on DVD and Blu-ray next Monday. So
what you're saying is you have absolutely no excuse to not watch this.
You have no excuse. And if, like me, you have parents who are really into Motown, then it's absolutely a must recommend. So this is a documentary by Gabe and Benjamin Turner, who've come from something of a musical documentary background. They've done a lot of concert movies and things like that, but they have also done documentaries like I Am Bolt and the like. So this is basically the story of Berry Gordy, who I didn't realise is the one solitary figure who effectively founded Motown.
Oh, okay.
He came from the...
I love when you learn.
I know, right? Oh, you'll have a ball with this then.
Okay.
So much I did not know. I always forget Stevie Wonder was a child performer first.
Yep, I always just imagine Stevie as Stevie.
You do, don't you? But he was like 14 when he starts.
Wow.
I had no idea. Anyway, so Berry Gordy came from the Ford Motor Plant in Detroit, in Motor City, and that's where obviously he would come up with the name. And what he liked was the assembly line idea of the factory, and he wanted to apply that to curating and creating the finest musical talent in the business. And that goes up to and including meddling with songs that he didn't, but obviously the performers themselves don't, but we do in hindsight, realize will be the biggest pieces of popular music ever recorded.
I'm just a stubborn kind of fella. Shadoo-boo-wow, very jazzy, He said, yeah, but that's not going to sell any records. I said, oh, well, I thought I'd give it the old try.
Barry could sense what needed to happen to make it pop. And I'm not saying pop meaning pop music, but I'm saying to make it have that thing.
So anyway, Barry said, listen, why don't you put this chord right here on it? Da. I said, oh, man, that's killing my jazz, man. So he said, yeah.
It's really toe-tapping, head-bopping fun.
Just by that clip, I know it's the type of documentary I'd like to go and watch. It's where it cuts to a talking head, and then he's kind of explaining what's happened. And yeah, love it.
Here's the thing I found amusing as well, is they do have a really solid way. Normally it can be quite patronising when they get contemporary artists to look back on something like Motown.
Okay.
And the artists they've chosen here are quite an eclectic and interesting bunch. So this is up to and including, for instance, John Legend. And
does he feature? So he features?
He features as well, as does Jamie Foxx.
Okay.
And Sam Smith. Even.
Oh, this is annoying me. Sam Smith is everywhere where he shouldn't be right now.
But it's got a hell of a roster going for it. It's like Smokey Robinson's in there, Martha Reeves, just the who's who of great Motown talent, the ones still around, are all in there. Stevie Wonder will talk for England, it seems.
Amazing.
But it's
and
just
how
a really
often
sweet
do you get to
doc.
see some of those kind of stalwarts of that music era talking in one continuous 2 hour or so movie? Like, it's very rare that you get to see something like that. So if you're just fans of certain elements of Motown. It'd be so nice to watch this and just see who crops up.
Oh, you really do. And you just find yourself with a mental list of songs in the back of your head, and you're like, come on, get to My Girl. Come on, get to My Girl.
I know, right? Yeah.
And then
actually,
they do.
The guy in that clip, whoever was singing in that clip, had such a silky voice, and you think he's singing it like...
That was Marvin Gaye?
Was it Marvin Gaye? Oh, my
so.
goodness.
I think that was Marvin and Stevie Wonder, I think, in that clip.
Fantastic. Well, what happens there is that you just... When he cuts out and he's like, and it's something like that, you're like, no, just keep singing. So I'm going to be a lot like that as I watch this.
We'll just say, before we cut off on this one, I thought it was also quite a touching documentary. It did offer insight that I'd never really considered into the idea that Motown sort of rose to prominence as the civil rights movement was reaching its peak. And they would bump into and get invited to functions at which Martin Luther King would always be present, would express his express his love for Motown, and they would effectively team up, and I'd never considered that. Also, Motown was a really diverse place in a time that did not reward diversity.
Wow,
which,
you are going to learn a lot from this.
Oh, yeah, you are. So, 2 thumbs up from me for Motown. Yep. Two jiggling, dancing thumbs up from me. 2
jiggling, dancing thumbs. So that is Hitsville, The Making of Motown.
I want to keep dancing, though.
Yeah, I can. Well, do you know what? I wish our next movie is going to keep you singing.
Maybe
more
I can
than
never singing. I can never singing.
I mean, obviously, another big movie out this week is, this is unprecedented that we're going to get what I would suggest are 2 frontrunners for the Oscars in 1 week. It is a strong week for movies. We're going to talk about Judy right now. This is in cinemas from Friday. It's rated 12A. It stars Renee Zellweger, and it plays on the last year of Judy Garland's life, so 30 years on from The Wizard of Oz, and it kind of documents her time in London.
Do you need anything, or should we dive in?
It's really damp in here. I don't think rehearsing is a good idea.
Right.
Well, I have all your charts. Are there any changes you might like to make?
No, everything the same.
Is there anything to discuss then?
Sweetheart, that's up to you. I don't particularly need to discuss anything.
Judy, I'm afraid the critics will review opening night.
Sure. Of course.
It's tomorrow.
I'd like to rest.
Now, you've picked an interesting part of as a clip there, because she's quite curt in that.
She is. Well, this because she does start as the proper diva, doesn't she?
Yeah, she does. Well, she doesn't. I think she... Maybe as she's trying to assert her authority in London, but we certainly at the beginning of the movie kind of see her having her kind of relationship with her kids, her kind of desperation for money in the US before moving over to try and sort of save herself in a way in London. I mean, because obviously you can only save yourself in London.
Of course, yeah.
But this for me, I mean, I saw you put like wham bam 5 stars for this on your sort of early review of this.
I did, yes.
And do you know what? If I could give Renee Zellweger a rating for this, I'd give her 5 stars. I'd probably give the movie 4.
I would agree with that, and I think we accidentally found ourselves starting to have this conversation before we got on mic, which was
slap
effectively
on the wrist. Stop doing that.
So effectively, she is easily, at the very least, she's a Best Actress nomination.
Yes.
I mean, same with Joaquin Phoenix. At the very least, he's a nomination. Whether or not he'll win, we'll see who the contenders are. But
they're both going to be hard to beat.
They'd have to be strong, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
However, we did say that in terms of the film, this is really no more or less than Stan and Ollie was.
Yeah, the tone is a little bit passive, I suppose, in a way. It's a little bit kind of...
Not quite as gritty.
No, and also what I would have loved to have seen is more throwbacks, like jazz hand throwbacks to Judy's heyday. I know we get a throwback to The Wizard of Oz, but that leads into the narrative of this movie, whereas actually what you wanted to see is maybe her perform something or try and replicate performing that in the studio, but also like Meet Me in St. Louis or, you know, A Star is Born, her on stage, or even singing Happy or something like that, you know, where we would have seen her in the fishnets and the top hat and things, just to see what that is like, to remind anyone that doesn't know about Judy why she was so great.
I will say, I will make 2 quick points before I pass it back to you. Hang on. So, first point, when I say Renee Zellweger is terrific in this movie, her first musical number in London might have the single best bit of acting I've seen since DiCaprio in
The Revenant?
No, I mean last year, the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. There's a moment in that where I just genuinely thought he was the greatest actor alive.
Oh, right.
And there's a moment she
Wow.
simply acts with her eyes during a song and dance number, and it is it just gives you chills.
Yeah.
Second point, you mentioned about the Wizard of Oz flashback. Those scenes, which are all flashback scenes, with another actress playing a younger Judy. I forgot that actress's name, but those sequences and the things we're shown that she was put through in her heyday, My God, how chilling is that in the post-Me Too
100%. And that's why it leads into the narrative. But I think a lot of people might be going to this expecting to see more musical numbers from earlier in Judy's career. So it's just... That would be my only criticism, to kind of caveat that it's not really about that. It really is focused on those last kind of year of her life, or, you know, late six months to a year of her life left. I think, you know, we kind of know what happens to her at the end of it. And the thing is that what you're watching here is another great character study. You're watching a character who is addicted to medication. She's obviously got something like bipolar disorder or something
There's
like
something
that.
I'm not sure what the specifics were with Judy Garland.
No, exactly. But if you cross-reference, she was a very unhappy woman and she was broke. So if you cross-reference the images of Judy Garland and what Renee Zellweger performs at that time, you are seeing everything from the way she sits, quite like with Joaquin Phoenix in The Joker.
Absolutely.
The contortion of her body, her voice, and her singing voice, because Renee does sing this. And to take on
her singing?
It's her singing.
It is her singing?
Yes.
Oh, God, I was wondering about that the whole way through.
I did some Googling because I was like, I've got to know. And, you know, to take on one of the greatest voices of, you know, of our time and generation, you know, back in the day, particularly, I say our time, it's kind of all time. This is why it makes it an absolutely killer performance from Renee.
Thumbs up, thumbs down from you?
Do you know what? I'm going to give it 2 massive thumbs up. It's just the film that I would have dropped it a little bit for. But you know what, Renee, you win every time.
We want to give a shout out to our friends at Runway East, where we record this show. They're on a mission to provide the world's best office space for startup teams, and, well, they're doing pretty damn well at it. I'm partial to the roof garden myself. They're in London Bridge, Soho, Moorgate, very zen places to work. Give them a peep at runwayea.st. That's runwayea.st.
Now, if we've given you enough recommendations for going to the cinema, I don't know why you'd be sat on your backside on your sofa watching stuff on the small screen. But if you haven't listened to us, I don't know who you are that's not listening to us, but if you haven't listened to us, you know what? You're lucky, because this week you've actually got some real corkers on the small screen as well, haven't we, Van?
Oh, yes. Freeview is just loaded up with good flicks this week. And one is actually quite topical because it ties into a film coming out next week. So it's fun to be had.
I don't know which one you're talking about.
We'll get there.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Now, I'm going to start off with a divisive movie, which, if, like me, you watched it, were lucky enough to watch it a few months before the hype kicked off, then you will be absolutely in love with this film, and I will be watching this again and again on Saturday night. But this is, and if you watched it when it was too hyped, you might not like it as much. But this is La La Land. It's on BBC Two Saturday night at 9:20 p.m. It was one of my 5-star films as well. I love this. I was sobbing throughout. I loved every bit of homage that it paid to the golden age of Hollywood. I loved that it was quite rough and ready and not practically perfect as a musical. And I thought the performances were great. It was everything I wanted it to be.
Did we go to the same screening as this? I think it was the very first one of the year. It was the very first press show of the year, and it was in the Regent Street View.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that was a nice afternoon, actually. Nice late morning.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, people didn't know. They just heard some stuff and didn't quite know what to go in and expect.
I thought it was straight up delightful, son.
Yeah, I love this movie. I'm glad you're in that camp with me on this. I mean, you know, Ryan Gosling, Emma Stone, Oscar-winning Emma Stone for this.
Sexy ass couple right there.
Absolutely. And remember, all this is trying to do is bring you back to that magic that movies and musicals give you, that delight of it. So don't take it too seriously and think that it's like, oh, it looks silly. Why are they doing this? It's because it's brilliant. Okay, enough said.
Can I defend Sunday now?
Fine.
So Sunday night, 5-star, 9 p.m. It is the best of the Blade movies, which also coincidentally is the only one written and directed by Guillermo del Toro and starring Ron Perlman.
I don't know which Blade movie I've seen. All I remember is Wesley Snipes looking
Scowly.
Scowly, yeah.
he does that a lot. It's amazing how much younger he was when you see the clips of Blade 1 now, because it always seems like he's been the same age he is right this moment in time. But so Blade 2, the second movie, I think this came about 2002 thereabouts. Okay. Blade, in Prague, is forced to team up with vampires to fight a third faction of vampires who the original vampires are afraid of because they're
God, that's way
evil
too many vampires.
Retrovirus. I'll tell you what, here's a sampling of the tone and the fun to come.
From now on, we work as a unit. You'll be taking orders from me. Any questions? Good. You want to catch the hunter, you start with the prey. We'll target all the night places where vampires congregate. Blood banks, safe houses. Bigger the better. So, what's first?
I love how he just very precisely pronounces his words with a breath.
I know.
So he's like, right, you're gonna follow me.
You know what? I will give it to Wesley Snipes. He's awesome as Blade. He's a role he was born to play.
What universe does Blade come from?
Well, Blade is a Marvel character because he's being rebooted for the MCU now because Mahershala Ali is the new Blade.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, so that's the
Okay.
Avenger universe Blade we're getting.
Wow, okay,
but,
that'll be interesting.
Yeah, 9 o'clock, 5-star, Sunday night. Check it out. It is really, really good. It's the masterpiece of the Blade trilogy.
If you like Blade.
I don't think you even have to. It's also just a really good Del Toro horror action film.
If you like Del Toro.
If you like Del Toro or horror action films or films. Anyway, over to you. What we got
Fine.
Monday?
Monday, you're starting your week with 4 Lions on Film 4 at 10:55 p.m. A hilarious film.
This is what ties into next week because The Day Shall Come is next week, and that's Chris Morris.
Okay, fine. Riz Ahmed, a really good, strong cast in this. I have not seen this in, years. All I remember is them blowing themselves up and finding it funny.
Well, I have something of a connection to this, obviously, because it's filmed and set in Sheffield.
Right.
To the extent that even the scenes that take place in London later on are still filmed in Sheffield. They're actually filmed on the Wicker, where the Sheffield Space Centre comic store my friend works for is based. Which means we had Benedict Cumberbatch down there and no one told us. But
Aside.
Really funny movie, instantly quotable, an absolute anarchic cult classic. I think. Is it big? Is it too big to be a cult classic?
Well, I think it is in a way. I think it makes light of a very serious subject matter and turns it on its head in a clever way, which is why it became so successful.
Absolutely.
Trying to think of the time when it actually came out.
2009 or 2010.
Yeah. It's a good decade ago or so, but for that time frame, again, very topical as well. So, if you've never seen it, treat yourselves.
Oh yeah.
It's a 10:55 Film 4 on Monday. 4 Lions. Give it a watch.
So on to Tuesday then. Stick with Film 4, 9 p.m. A comedy I thought was vastly ignored by far too many people.
Yeah.
Seriously, this movie was so much better than any of the other critics said it was, than any of the 50 people who showed up to see it said it was, because it underperformed. It only made something like 16 mil or something like that.
This is Zac Efron, right?
Zefron, Dwayne Johnson, Alexandra Daddario. This thing had a hell of a cast. So of course, we're talking
Was
about.
it Olivia Munn in this as well? Was she?
No. There is a lady who looks kind of like Olivia Munn.
Okay.
But Priyanka Chopra is in this as the villain. I fell in love with her in this. And it's Baywatch. It's 9 p.m. Film 4. And, there's so many great moments. Just like this.
What did we learn from the perps after the interrogation?
The only perps here are you three. Okay, you turned the canals into the goddamn X Games.
Yeah, that's because we were in lifeguard pursuits.
Oh, okay. My bad. Except for there's no such thing as lifeguard pursuit. Police do pursuits. When you do it, it's just some guys chasing some other guys. No offense.
None taken. Wait, what are you saying? You're just gonna let those guys walk?
Okay, how do I explain this so that you people understand?
You people? You people?
Oh, you don't get to say that. You're just tan.
That's classic, isn't it?
You know what? I love a movie that doesn't take itself too seriously.
Oh, no.
And moving swiftly onto a movie that takes itself way too seriously. Did you see what I did there?
Oh, yeah. Clever.
Wednesday, Sony Channel, 9 o'clock is Drive. I might be the only person on the planet that hates this movie.
I think because it's not really a film so much as it's a music video.
I was just going to say, all it is a glorified music video.
I'm fine with that because at least it's a good music video.
Do you know what? It's got more awkward pauses than Made in Chelsea in it. It's just one of those films that I just think, why am I watching this? To be fair, I've done it again. I watched this movie on an airplane. And I don't know if that was the best place to watch it, but I really can't be bothered to watch it again.
Drive is a movie that I thought was great at the time. I didn't include it in my top 10 of the year that year, and John Colson has never let me forget it. However, I will say that his follow-up to this, where Nicholas Winding Refn, the director and writer of this, and not the writer, sorry, and star Ryan Gosling would go on to star in would go on to make Only God Forgives.
Yeah,
like
and
a
then
year
there's
or two
The Place
later.
Beyond the Pines as well, isn't it?
The problem was the awkward stare thing reached a joke point by the time you got to the Only God Forgives one, to the point where he was committing sex acts using just a glare. Yeah, that was bad.
The thing is that this director kind of had like a trilogy of these movies, and then we haven't really heard from him since.
He's been doing a lot of TV and stuff. He's art house TV.
Yeah, but I think when you reach that kind of pinnacle where everyone's kind of talking about it in sort of a cult status, The Jacket, for instance, the lift scene. I mean, Kerry Mulligan, I thought was massively miscast in this as well. I didn't really like her performance. I didn't think it didn't really make a good connection with Ryan Gosling's character, and it didn't work for me on so many different levels. But hey, I get it. I'm expecting trolling right now.
But hey, really cool music video.
Yeah, great. It's just way too long.
So can we move on to a director who no one wants to talk about anymore?
And I don't know. I've never heard of this movie before in my life.
You will have, because the official title is X2. The official title with subtitle is X2 X-Men United.
Oh, I was just about to say it's
They
X-Men,
changed it for the UK because it sounded too much like a football score.
Oh, for goodness'
That's
sake.
what we were told. So X2, Film 4, 6:20 on Thursday night. The best X-Men movie, genuinely,
Who's
straight
directed
up.
this?
Bryan Singer.
Right, I get it.
Here's a coming out scene.
So, when did you first know you were
a mutant?
But you cut that out.
You have to understand, we thought Bobby was going to a school for the gifted.
Bobby is the gifted.
We know that. We just didn't realize he
We
was...
still love you, Bobby. It's just this mutant problem is a little
What mutant problem?
complicated.
What exactly are you, Professor of, Mr. Logan?
Art.
Okay, so for X-Men fans, Van's recommendation that this is the best X-Men movie ever. So go and watch it despite the fact of your feelings for Bryan Singer. Moving swiftly on to the final film of the week. This is on the Horror Channel, 10:50 p.m. on Friday. It is Let Me In.
Now,
this is Chloe Grace Moretz.
It is. I always get this and Let the Right One In, which this is the remake of. I get the two titles confused as to which one's the original and which one's the remake.
Let the Right One In is the original, and
course,
this is the remake that I didn't think worked as well as the original.
People are a lot more down on this one than they are on Let the Right One In.
Yeah.
I personally thought for an American reinvention, it's not quite Funny Games, which admittedly changed nothing but the language. This, I think, tilts it a little bit more.
Yeah.
But it's that performance. Is it Asa Butterfield as the young boy?
So.
Or is it? Oh no, it's Cody Smith-McPhee from the
Good knowledge.
Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Sorry, I remember obscure actors.
Basically, it's little vampires who, in a very subtle and adult kind of way, go through their lives, and
very true.
That's all you need to know. Go and watch it. Chloe Grace Moretz proves why she's an excellent child star and has had a bright future ahead of her, and she probably still does, to be fair.
Welcome back for one last ride, and this time we're going to keep you on the couch, but we'll switch to what I think we're now nostalgically calling the shiny disc. And
yeah, you're going to watch it on video on demand.
Exactly. So, movies that are out on DVD and Blu-ray this upcoming Monday, October the 7th. We've got 3 picks for you. We've gone from having one of the best X-Men movies in the movies on TV segment to having one of the worst ones on home platforms, but we'll get to that after we talk about The Secret Life of Pets 2.
So, I watched the first movie.
Yeah.
And I didn't watch this second one because I think everything that was good about the first movie was in the trailer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so then it didn't warrant for someone who doesn't have kids to be forced back to the cinema and to watch a second version of this. Was it any good?
Right, the second movie is the movie the marketing campaign for the first movie promised it was going to give you, and then didn't. The second movie is what you wanted the first time around.
So I should go and watch this?
You absolutely should, just for moments like this.
You know, I gotta say, this is nice. Good to stretch the legs.
I don't want to go to the vet!
The vet? No! No! Oh, not cool. You tricked me!
Maxie, come on, boy. You've been so stressed lately, but this vet is gonna help you. Let's go, buddy.
It is kind of identifiable humour. There's great gags in, for instance, in that vet's waiting room when you get like psychotic cats and things like that, medicated dogs with clear conditions. And there's a show-stealing performance from Harrison Ford, who literally shows up to just play Harrison Ford as a dog.
Oh, I quite like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just grumpy Harrison Ford, but he's a farmyard dog.
Brilliant. I bet it was a barrel in the voiceover studio for that.
Oh, probably not. He probably just showed up and barked at them and they thought, yeah, he's on fine form as always. So, I mean, there's some changes to it. Louis C.K. obviously is out for somewhat well-known reasons.
Yes.
Patton Oswalt is in. The difference works because the story it requires the character to be a little bit looser than he had been in the first one. It still has the requisite laughs, but I think is a stronger film by simply keeping the narrative less held together than the last one did. This having separate subplots and things like that works. The film is so good, in fact, it even pulls off a very obviously pandering superhero storyline.
Cool.
So there you go. So Secret Life of Pets 2,
it.
worth checking out.
Nice. Next up, we have probably the biggest hatred from Van for the last year. I didn't think it was as bad as everyone is making out, but it still left me like I can't remember it. It is X-Men Dark Phoenix. It had some fun action bits.
I think I ranked it as like the third worst. But
Third
worst, and that's only because X-Men The Last Stand and X-Men Origins Wolverine exist.
Do you know what? I get so confused with all of those titles. I never remember which is which.
Yeah, we get confused following them as well as fans because they don't seem to have any idea what their own continuity is at this stage.
Fair enough.
Pretty
I thought
sure
I was leaving that open for a little bit of a jibe.
Pretty sure Nicholas Hoult and Jennifer Lawrence would have to be in their mid-50s by now if we're following the timeline on this.
That is one of the major problems was the timeline on this, wasn't it? It just didn't quite work. But it basically centres around Jean Grey, doesn't it? So Sophie Turner's sort of turn to be the lead in this, and what a shame. She's if this didn't work out, which it didn't. I think there was obviously lots of problems in production, which was delaying it.
It was reshot twice, and one of those was after the last round was after the Disney merger.
Right.
So they knew that this franchise was not long for this world.
Yeah, okay.
And it shows.
Well, it does show. There are disjointed bits in it. But for me, who just like shiny things on TV, I just thought the action sequences, there was a good train action sequence that I quite liked in it.
In which all the bad guys have MCU written across their backs in big white letters.
Didn't see that.
Yep, total thing.
This is the thing, like, if you're a fan of this, you're going to be looking out for all those little Easter eggs or whatever.
That was literally in text in front of me.
For people like me, I would have thought it was like some fancy FBI thing for that particular
meant to be
world.
Mutant Control Unit.
Well,
and apparently, the two I said we hadn't considered it when we were until we were actually filming it and then thought, leave it in.
Yeah, one for the fans.
Yeah.
Take it or leave it. It certainly didn't float everyone's vote on the big screen, so whether or not it does on the small screen is up to you. Moving swiftly on as well.
Godzilla King of the Monsters is out. This one is another take it or leave it. I think.
No, I liked this.
I liked this as well, but there are a lot of people who didn't. Now, my friend Calvin,
shame
for instance,
on you.
fanatical about this movie.
Fanatical.
He loved this movie.
Good.
He thought it absolutely blew him away. But you know what? It is what it is. It's there's a bunch of ancient titans, the monsters like King Ghidorah and creatures like that, and Mothra, who are coming back and going to take, lay waste to the world. Our only hope is Godzilla and his plucky band of human sidekicks.
Is it just me, or has he been working out?
Kidding me? Sarazawa's got that lizard juiced.
Damn right.
Oh boy. Godzilla's radiation levels are going through the roof. We got about 12 minutes before he goes thermonuclear.
What do you mean?
I'm saying in about 12 minutes, it's going to be a bad day to be a Red Sox fan.
Exactly what you think it's going to be, isn't it?
So this is, I would actually rename this as the search for Godzilla, because you spend a lot of time trying to find out where Godzilla is in this movie.
Yeah, they seem to lose him very easily for a creature that size.
He's basically, he doesn't want to know about it. But what I love about this, so a few years ago there was the Gojira version of this with Aaron Taylor Johnson.
Yes, that was the Gareth Edwards version.
The Gareth
Edwards 2014.
version. I loved it because it felt like, as does this movie, like a homage to the really old school ones. It felt quite like practical effects as opposed to big CGI stuff. Obviously, there's CGI, but
Obviously,
it had
I'll give you that. They don't feel particularly artificial. You do believe in these monsters.
Yeah, you do, in a way. And I think you get that element here. And someone came out of that screening and said to me, you know what? Some people want to see a monster movie. Some people don't really want to go and see a work of art. And I was like, I like the hybrid of the two. And I think it was very artistic.
Rim, yo.
Yeah, exactly, right? But actually, I like the fact that we remember where Godzilla's origins are. And it is like that kind of tacky practical effects of yesteryear. And they bring it in once again on this. But it never does well with critics when they do that.
No, definitely
Which is
not.
a shame, which I thought they would have loved that.
There's some sequences in this, though, with the music music and the shot and the cinematography that are just absolutely breathtaking.
Yeah.
Monsters coming up with the water flowing down over their backs in slow motion. And
I do have to say, there was a bit with Godzilla where I described him as an oversized fat dinosaur with lightning coming out of his
that's
mouth.
about average, yeah.
Yeah, for me, it was Godzilla, age 40-something, that had just put on a bit of weight and eaten too many Cheerios. It just
So he reached his Gerard Butler phase.
Yeah, it's his Gerard Butler phase. Kind of didn't work that much for me on that sense, but overall, I quite liked it.
Yeah, me too. So should we wrap up with one last one for streaming this week? Because this is going to be huge.
You say it's going to be huge. For me, not so much, because I didn't really get into Breaking Bad.
Did you not?
No.
Oh, I think I got into it around about halfway through the third season, so I was with it for the point where it became a huge smash.
Okay.
So from Friday next week, which is the 11th, we're going to have El Camino, a very secretly produced movie starring Aaron Paul and a couple of the supporting players from Breaking Bad, from his character's friends. And it's going to be the events that befall Jesse Pinkman after the end of the series. So
I was going to say you're going to be gutted if this was actually so secretly kept. It's actually nothing to do with Breaking Bad.
Well, they didn't even say that for ages. They just called it El Camino.
Yeah.
There was nothing. The two trailers we have for it are very mysterious. They really hold a lot back, admirably so.
There's a lot of hype then, isn't there? Which there's a lot to fall down on.
There really is.
Yeah,
there really
but we'll wait and see.
Yeah, we'll find out next week anyway, but we'll be back before that airs. So we'll be recording it before that airs, so we can see.
Why have you brought it up?
Because, that's anyone listening to this still doesn't hear us until after it's out.
Wow, okay, fair enough. But look, there's been some great movies out this week. So we've got particularly movies that are on your big screen. This is the weekend. I don't know what the weather's doing, but use it as an excuse.
Anyone knows what the weather's doing.
I know. Use it as an excuse to go and sit in a dark room with Judy and the Joker and just, use those cinema cards because that's what they're there for.
And then Monday, get the DVD of Hitsville.
Yes, that too, yeah. And then sit at home for the rest of the week and watch things like La La Land, Blade 2 for anyone who wants
Baywatch,
to
most importantly.
Most importantly, Baywatch. And you might want to treat yourself to a little bit of Secret Life of Pets 2. And if you're into your artsy-fartsy movies, then Godzilla King of the Monsters is almost up there.
You calling Godzilla an art movie?
I might be pushing it just
God,
a
we've got
little
off the
bit.
reservation now.
Hire me back next week, please.
So, speaking of next week then, big stuff next week. We've already said The Day Shall Come, latest from Chris Morris.
Yes.
That's out next week. Abominable is next week, the Abominable Snowman movie.
Shaun the Sheep movie. I've seen the trailer for that. I've just been like, I'm not watching it. We've also got Gemini Man. Looks awful.
Really? You think that looks awful?
Looks awful.
I'm intrigued as hell. So we've got 2 Will Smiths and the things in 60 frames a second IMAX. This is going to be insane.
Okay,
And
well,
it's Ang Lee.
you'll have to see how we turn out next week, whether or not we're loving or fighting each other.
In the meanwhile, that's it all from us. I've been Van Connor.
I'm Bex Perfect, and this is Off Screen.